Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wonders.com's webinar on techniques for reducing anxiety and stress for frontliners in the age of pandemic. I am Lady May, Wonders.com Sales and Engagement Manager, but for today, I will be your host. I would like to acknowledge all the participants, our modern heroes who gave time to attend this webinar. I am sure that this is worth of your time, as well as we will be talking the topic which is timely each of one of you. A topic that I know that you have heard many times, but one, let us know what really the stress and anxiety is and how we can reduce it. Also, at the end of the webinar, we will be announcing the winners of our raffle draw. Make sure to stay tuned. And this is really exciting. We will be giving gifts to those who will be chosen for the raffle draw. And then before that, we will also formally start the webinar and introduce the speaker. I am inviting all of you healthcare workers who are currently looking for jobs and want to progress their career to download our app. We have many jobs listed, and that is only related for the healthcare industry. We have jobs for nurses, medical, and then also technologists, and jobs to those who wish to work from home, who are currently active as a RN or registered nurse here in the Philippines, and also USRN license. Please click the links from the comment section for the list of jobs and for the mobile app. You can also check it out after this webinar. So again, before that, I would like to introduce first what is Wonders.com. So let me share my screen. What is Wonders.com? So we are a startup technology company based in Singapore that focuses only for nurses and allied health professionals. Our main goal is to connect all the healthcare professionals to the healthcare industry. We are already live, and the mobile application is available in Android and iOS. So our vision is to become the most loved and most trusted services and solutions provider, a marketplace for the healthcare workers, hospitals and healthcare facilities, and the healthcare educational institutes through our platform and technologies. And our mission is for the love of the healthcare workers. We thank you, we respect you, and we will empower you. So here is the mobile app, and this is used for the healthcare providers. For the healthcare professionals. You can download it through iOS or even in Android mobile. And then also, you can also search jobs, easy to apply and get inspired, because we have this feature in our platform wherein you will be able also to see inspirational stories for the healthcare professionals. And then you can also personalize your profile, and that works as your CV and get noticed or notified by the employers. And then also you can explore any opportunities, not only here, but all over the world, especially in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, in Canada. So yeah, this is our mobile app. So you can download it to App Store and Google Play. I also provided here the QR code. And then you will also use the QR code as well for the downloading of the application. So we already have job posts there. So to all the healthcare professionals who would like to have another opportunity for their profession, you can download the app now and you can browse opportunities from the platform. So you can job, and you can also learn from our app through the stories. You will be able to know how to pass a certain exam, and also inspirational stories. And then, as you can see, several jobs that you can apply for. So you can make your CV and then noticed by the employers. You can also save jobs for the future purposes, read inspiring articles, and then you can also through research of how to become a nurse in other country like Singapore, New Zealand, and UAE. And all the informations you need about the healthcare system in these countries, we got you covered. Download the app now and join the community of healthcare professionals today. And thank you. So now let us proceed to the introduction of our guest speaker. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce the speaker today. She graduated Bachelor of Science in Nursing at Fast Eastern University, Manila, and currently taking Master of Arts in Nursing at the University of the Philippines, Manila, a training coordinator of nursing education training and research at National Center for Mental Health, a psychiatric mental health nurse for 8 years and counting. Let us all welcome Ms. Dominic Marina Tionco, registered nurse.
Thank you, Lady May, for that introduction, and of course, thank you very much for introducing One Nurse, the mobile application of One Nurse to us. I think that is a very timely innovation for nurses, especially nowadays that we are in the middle of the pandemic. And thank you very much for having me tonight here in our webinar. Okay, may I share my screen?
Yeah, sure, you can.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, let me pull this up first. So good evening, by the way, to all the nurses who are tuned in to this live webinar. And it is a great pleasure to be here, especially since we're going to talk about one of the most timely topics in today's era when it comes to the pandemic that we're facing. So COVID-19 is actually not only a medical concern. It's not just an illness that is very contagious, and sometimes we think that, oh, we're gonna die of COVID. But sometimes, and more often than not, COVID-19 is not just a medical illness. It's not just an infectious illness, but rather it also has a psychological impact on our health and well-being. Okay, and so we're going to talk about that in a few. So I'm a psychiatric nurse, and it is quite interesting that not only do we experience COVID-19 as a physical illness, we sometimes tend to forget, or sometimes we tend to overlook that COVID-19 also has some mental implications on our health. And as we all say in the National Center for Mental Health, there is really no health without mental health. So with that, let me introduce this topic for this evening: the techniques for reducing anxiety and stress for frontliners in the face of the pandemic. Okay, so us nurses, we are quite given the challenge of being on the front line. Okay, so along with our doctors and other allied health professionals, we were tasked to do this very daunting task. Also, other than, of course, the stress of the economy going down, or perhaps the pressures of the new normal, as we say. So classes are out, workers get laid off. It is quite a blessing for us nurses that somehow this is our chance to shine. So in the Philippine setting, nurses have not been given as much of the limelight as compared to other countries. Okay, so fortunately, when the pandemic came, even though Filipino nurses have had challenges before, somehow the pandemic, or the COVID-19 pandemic, has given us has given Filipino nurses a chance to showcase our natural care and talent in providing patient care. And somehow we've been quite in demand in a lot of countries, right? So of course, this big task for all of us also has its implications. Okay, so we might not even realize that somehow we are experiencing stressors or even anxiety that can really affect the way we deliver our care to our patients. Okay, so with that, of course, who takes care of our healthcare workers? So sadly, sometimes when we are in a position that we cannot provide care, then a lot of people or a lot of the population is going to have a hard time, especially if the frontliners are tired already. Okay, so it's up to us to at least sound the alarm for ourselves so that we can reduce stressors and anxieties so that we can deliver better patient care, and at the same time, at least we can do something to care for our health and well-being. Okay, so let's start. What are the things that we're going to talk about today? So first, to address the mental and emotional needs of healthcare workers during this time of the pandemic. Okay, what are the things that we need in this very crucial time? To also identify our personal coping skills that can alleviate our stress and anxiety, and of course, to display interest. How can we do these stress and anxiety reduction techniques, and how can we apply it in our everyday living as frontliners? Okay, so with that, of course, we need to understand first what is stress and anxiety. So sometimes we throw around the ball of stress and we define stress as easy as they come. Sometimes we just say, oh, I'm so stressed out. And a little bit on that, sometimes we also throw around mental health terms like anxiety, depression. Sometimes it's easy for us to say that, oh my God, I am depressed. I think I'm very anxious. We take those terms lightly, but somehow we need to understand what it is that we are going through. Is it stress, or are we already in the brink of anxiety? Okay, so let's differentiate. So stress, of course, is defined as any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. So it's anything that causes changes in your everyday well-being, and of course, to your physical and emotional states. Okay, stress is also your body's response to anything that requires attention or action. Okay, sometimes we think that stress is always in a negative light, but stress basically it's something that encourages you to do something, to act on a certain pressure or a certain stimulus in your life. Right? So without any form of stress in your life, you're not going to do anything. So without a certain stress in your life, you're not going to be motivated to do or to act on the things that you need to do. Okay? Whereas, on the other hand, anxiety is an emotion. Okay? So, in going back to stress, stress is a stimulus, but anxiety in itself is an emotion. Okay? It's an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes. And it's also a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's currently happening or what's yet to come. Okay? So anxiety is something that really tugs at your emotion. It's a feeling that really grates at your heart. Of course, you're going to have emotional and psychological manifestations when you have anxiety. Okay? So now you get to think about, okay, what am I feeling right now? Am I simply stressed out? Meaning, am I feeling something that I need to do? Or perhaps I am already having this overwhelming feeling of fear or apprehension. Okay? So the difference between stress and anxiety is that stress is really just something or an alarm that you need to attend to so that you can do your everyday tasks. Okay? The stress of getting up in the morning, the stress of having to report to your duties on time. Okay? Those are stressors. Okay? However, if you're already feeling anxious, you're going to have these thoughts or worried thoughts or feelings like, oh no, I need to get to report to work, but somehow I cannot leave the house because I am having this overwhelming feeling that something bad is going to happen. Okay, so that is anxiety. Okay, somehow the stress is there, but it is so overwhelming that it affects your everyday or your daily living. Okay, so those are the differences between these two factors or these two things that is usually sometimes misunderstood. Okay, so what do we need to know about stress and anxiety? Okay, so at least now we know that they're not all the same. Okay, so what are the things that we need to know? What are the myths that we need to debunk? Okay, first of all, stress is not an illness. Okay, so when we say that we are stressed out, it doesn't mean that we are sick. Okay, sometimes the stress is just there for us to take action. And of course, people respond to stress in different ways. Okay? So just because I can handle my daily stressors well doesn't mean that the other person or other people should have the same stress threshold as me. Okay? It doesn't mean that they have to be as tough as me. Okay? Sometimes people are just hardwired to be immune or to be too accustomed to stress, but it doesn't mean that it's something that is going to be taken against other people if they cannot respond healthily to stress. Okay, and of course, now we're going to talk about anxiety. Occasional anxiety is a normal part of life at a certain extent. Okay, so we feel anxious on an everyday basis. Okay, we feel anxious, especially if we're going to apply for a job. Oh, it's my first day, or rather, it's my first day of work, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. Of course, that is a feeling of anxiety. Or maybe your first time to drive a car, or your first time to meet other family members, or first time to meet other people. So you have this feeling of anxiety, and that's normal because you don't know what's going to happen. Okay, that is normal up to that certain extent. But if that anxiety is already taking its toll on you to the point that you cannot function well in your everyday needs, then that is what we call maladapted, and that is where anxiety becomes a disorder. Okay? And of course, with that, anything that extremely disrupts your daily life needs attention. So if you feel that you have this overwhelming sense of dread, you're already feeling anxious to the point that you don't feel the same anymore, then you need to pay attention to it. Okay? So us healthcare workers, us in the front lines, sometimes we neglect ourselves because we are always so service oriented. Okay? However, without knowing that our daily living, our own selves need attention. Okay? So again, there is a need to raise the alarm. Okay? If we feel that there's something wrong with us personally, we need to do something about it, because who else is going to take care of us but of course ourselves? In this time of pandemic, when there's a lot of people who depend on us, who depend on the care that we provide. Okay? So with that, let me just share this picture, okay? This very short infographic that can at least give us a clear picture of the things that are the same and or what is different between stress and anxiety. Okay? So with this, stress is more of a short-term base on a short-term basis. Excuse me. It's on a short-term basis wherein once the stressor has been resolved, then it's going to go away. Okay? It is in response to a recognized threat. Okay? So like the example that I have given you earlier, the stress of having to report to work on time. Okay? So once you're done with that, then the stress is over. Okay? However, with anxiety, and the feeling can actually linger for how many hours or even up to years if you do not address the feeling of anxiety. And the thing about anxiety is that it may not have an identifiable trigger. Okay? So when you say anxiety, sometimes you feel anxious or you feel scared for no particular reason. Okay? Sometimes you're just sitting in a corner and then you suddenly feel your heart pounding. Sometimes you tend to become restless, but you don't even know why you're feeling that way. Okay? So that is anxiety. The stark difference between stress and anxiety is that with stress, you know why you're feeling stressed and it's going to go away for a certain period of time once you're done with the stressor. But anxiety is going to take a lot from you because it can get so tiring to feel so overwhelmed and you don't even know what's causing that feeling. Okay? So, but the thing here, stress and anxiety, is that they have symptoms that are common with each other. So so that is the reason why a lot of people sometimes they tend to interchange these terms. Okay, so with both stress and anxiety, you have faster heartbeat, you have faster breathing, and you tend to have somatic symptoms like diarrhea or constipation. So it's going to be quite hard for you if you experience these somatic symptoms. It's not going to be helpful if you feel that there's something wrong with your body, but somehow the trigger is all in our minds. Okay. Now, since we're talking about stress and anxiety, now there exists a question. Okay, how is this related to the pandemic that we are experiencing right now? Okay, so this is a study published last 2021, not so long ago. Okay, so this article has been published in the Psychiatric Times. It is a journal that is a plethora of a lot of research on psychiatric and mental health. Okay, so we have what we now call the post-COVID stress disorder. Okay, this phenomenon is another emerging consequence of the global pandemic. Okay, so we have COVID-19. Yes, perhaps that we are going to adapt to the COVID-19 pandemic after all. Perhaps we're going to have a new normal, and then we're going to treat COVID as like the flu. Perhaps we're going to adapt to the lifestyle changes that we need in order for us to live with COVID-19. However, an emerging consequence, as the title implies, is that we're going to have another problem. Okay, because COVID-19 has really affected us in a way that our lifestyle has been drastically changed. We have a lot of news. We have a lot of cases wherein there are various traumatic stressors related to COVID-19, as well as effects of less severe types of stress exposures. Okay, so the changes that COVID-19 has given us or has imparted or impacted on the population is that it led to diverse mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, PTSD, okay, and other trauma and stress-related disorders. Okay, for a disease that's supposed to just affect your physical well-being, somehow the after effects of the pandemic has led to a lot of mental health conditions. Okay, but the thing with here is that sometimes we neglect this, and sometimes we do not even believe that we have a problem emotionally or mentally, because sometimes we feel that it is all in our minds, and then we also have this stigma when it comes to mental health conditions. Okay, and of course, with mental illness, you really cannot directly observe it, okay, unless it is already full blown. Okay, so different groups have met the qualifying criteria for PTSD. Okay, interestingly, PTSD is something that is commonly observable from people who have experienced a traumatic event, and PTSD is also something known to be more observable in veterans of war, okay? People who have been in violent incidents, okay? But nowadays, PTSD can also be observable in the general population simply because they are experiencing or they are in the midst of the negative effects of COVID-19. Okay? So with that, this implies that this post-COVID stress disorder, it is something that is just boiling, but it is going to emerge at one point in our lives, and then we're not going to be ready for it. Okay? And then we also have what we call the pandemic fatigue. Okay? And this is something that the World Health Organization acknowledges as of today. Right? So with pandemic fatigue, we have this emerging demotivation to engage in protection behaviors. Okay? The motivation to engage in protection behaviors and seek COVID-19 related information as complacency, alienation, and hopelessness. Okay, so how does this happen? Okay, with the pandemic fatigue, imagine we are in this pandemic since 2020. Okay, so in the Philippines, the first enhanced community quarantine was on March of 2020, and now we are in 2022. But somehow we are still battling COVID-19. Okay? Of course, there had been improvements from when COVID-19 first started in the Philippines and worldwide. And somehow we have done our share to cope up. Okay? But somehow, as time goes by, we become so tired. We tend to become disillusioned. Sometimes we feel that maybe we're not going to get out of this pandemic alive, or maybe this is really just a conspiracy theory. Okay, we just get tired of having to comply with the protection behaviors. We become so distraught to the point that maybe there's really no sense in engaging in protective behaviors anymore, because anyway, we're going to get COVID-19 one way or another, no matter how hard we try to protect ourselves. Okay, so that is the manifestation and effects of the pandemic fatigue in the general population. Okay, it evolves gradually over time, and it's affected by a number of emotions, experiences, and perceptions, okay, as well as the cultural, social, structural, and legislative environment. So the things that is happening around us, it contributes to the increase in pandemic fatigue among the population. Okay, so what happens around us, our government response to the pandemic, employment layoffs, family problems that arise from financial crisis. So those things or those factors are an interplay that can make or break how you feel about the pandemic fatigue. Okay, so now we know that we're going to have a problem soon when it comes to mental health conditions, and we're going to have problems in our emotions. So what are the things that we can do? Okay? We know that there's going to be a problem. So as healthcare workers, what do we need to do to protect ourselves? Okay, so we have what we call the balancing act. Okay, we bank on our protective factors. Okay, so the world is already stressful as it is. Okay, but we can always invest, or we can always bank on our protective factors. Okay, so what are these protective factors that can help us? Okay, as we go through this pandemic, and as we provide care, so that we won't end up having to give ourselves so much to the point that there's nothing left of us. Okay, so what are these protective factors? First, of course, the social support. Okay, is our family with us? Is our friends here for us when we need them? And of course, financial stability. This is very important, because how are we going to survive if we don't even have the means to do so? Okay, healthcare resources. If we get sick, do we have access to healthcare? Okay, Is our workplace safe for us to be able to provide care? Okay? Do we have wellness programs that we can tap into when we are feeling overwhelmed? Okay? Do we have activities that can at least clear our heads when we feel that we are already tired or fatigued? Okay? Adequate PPE. So it's like your physical lifeline. Okay? It's your protection from the virus itself. Okay? Promoting diversity, of course, and timely COVID-19 testing. As a healthcare worker, I am exposed to the virus. So if I feel that I have symptoms, can I have COVID-19 testing so that I won't be able to bring the virus to my family if ever I got it from work? Okay, so these are the protective factors that we can invest on as healthcare workers. Okay, so after this webinar, you can go back to yourself and ask, oh, do I have enough protective factors for me to be able to sail through this pandemic? Right. Okay. So here's an infographic from the World Health Organization as well, of course, the interplay of factors that affects our COVID-19 protective behaviors. So this is not only just applicable to our healthcare teams, but of course to the general public. Okay, what are the things or factors that can make or break your protective behaviors? First, the opportunity that you have, okay, when it comes to protecting yourself, okay, like your culture norms, your access to basic necessities, your support system, your income, is it okay? Okay, so that affects your protective behaviors. Your capability as a person. Do you have the necessary awareness, mental ability, efficacy for you to cope up with the demands of the pandemic? Okay? Are you motivated to do so? Okay? Do you have the motivation to protect yourself so that ultimately you can also protect your family and those around you? Okay? So opportunities, motivation, and your capacity. If these are the things that can define what kind of protective behavior that you have, so this can help you cope up with COVID-19, or if it's not enough, this is how you're going to compromise yourself in this pandemic. Now, what are the techniques that we can do as healthcare workers to manage our stress and anxiety? Well, of course, obviously, we need to stay physically safe from the virus. Okay? Practice the basics of good health and well-being. Let's keep ourselves healthy. Let us comply with the recommended health protocols. Let's not try to do shortcuts on this. Okay? Let us use our PPEs adequately, okay, and correctly. No shortcuts there too, because sometimes we get too tired and we neglect this stuff. But PPE is something that is really going to be your armor in when you are caring for COVID patients. Okay, of course, nutrition, adequate hydration, physical activity and exercise, and taking the necessary vitamins and supplements. These are all going to make you physically safe as much as possible. Okay, so invest in that. Social media detoxification. Now, the nice thing about this pandemic, I have to say, is that somehow it made it less boring. Somehow we have digital access to a lot of leisure activities, okay? And that includes social media. Okay? I, for one, is a social media user, and whenever I get bored during the lockdown before, I turn to Facebook to amuse myself. Okay, but social media has become a melting pot of a lot of information, and sometimes we don't even know anymore which of them are factual or not. Okay, with social media detoxification, there is a need for us to limit or to time the way we use this platform. Okay, in Facebook, there is an excess of news and visual images about traumatic events. Okay, there had also been a point wherein when I browsed my news feed before, there's a lot of people who change their profile pictures to black, okay, or a candle. So some in social media, it means that someone in that person's family who died. Okay, so that is a symbolism for them. Okay? And somehow it's depressing, especially when the surge came, and a lot of people I know have had deaths in their family. Okay, so that is very traumatic to know. And of course, we feel bad because it's someone we know. Okay, now the negativity that we experience when we see that in our news feeds can also take its toll on us. Okay, it can affect us. So sometimes we tend to think about, oh my God, is my family going to be next? Okay, now, so because of this build-up, a lot of people who use social media develop PTSD symptoms and poor health. They feel anxious, okay, because of these news alone. Okay, just by being exposed to a certain negative news, it can also impact your health and well-being. Sometimes you tend to also have poor sleep. Okay, so with social media, the recommendation is to limit your exposure to no more than twice a day and not before bedtime. Okay, I think we're all guilty that sometimes we scroll through our news feeds until we fall asleep, but that is really not acceptable, or that is not advisable rather. Okay, so let's try to limit our exposure to social media during this pandemic, so that at least we can have a healthy mix of real life and digital life. Okay, you do not have to completely throw it away, but at least try to time it in a way that it's not going to take up most of your daily hours. Okay, next we have the locus of control. Basically, this is identifying your strengths, okay, or rather acknowledging the things that you have control over. Okay, those are the things that you only need to focus on, and anything that is outside of your control is something that you don't have to think about. Okay, that is the locus of control. It's basically focusing on what you can control and forgetting the things that is outside your control. Like in this example, I can control my response to others, the protective factors that I can do for myself, okay, the information that I give to others. So those are the things that I can control. But things that are outside my control, like people losing their job, government response to COVID, okay, anything that you cannot do anything at all, you don't have to focus on that. Okay, that is going to take a lot of weight off of your shoulders just by practicing the locus of control. Okay, next, of course, to establish realistic routines. We are not superheroes. We have limited stamina, especially as healthcare workers. We of course, we are all very tired taking care of patients, so let us not oversaturate ourselves. Establish realistic routines. Do not lump everything in 24 hours. If you have other errands, you can distribute them day per day so that you do not overwhelm or over fatigue yourself. And of course, we have the work-life balance. To establish a fine line between your work life and your personal life. Okay, so it's not always that you have to be in a hospital, although sometimes the hours can be very demanding in healthcare. But it is also important that we also look back and give time to our families, because we work simply because we want to give the best life to our families, and not simply because we want to give service to others. Okay, so even though nursing or healthcare is practically a vocation, we also need to focus, or we need to look back on the needs of our families, and of course the needs of ourselves. Next, pursue meaningful hobbies. If you have a hobby, as much as possible, try to do it, or try to enhance a hobby that you have. Okay, and it is not something that you should be pressured into developing or into perfecting. Okay, it's done simply to make you happy. Okay, you do not have to be good at it. It's not supposed to be productive or useful. It's not made for you to be famous. Okay, and the consistency is not really an issue. It's basically something that you do to keep you happy. Okay, so don't pressure yourself. If you find meaning in doing something, make it a hobby so that you'll be happy. Okay, and of course, develop a list of self-care strategies. Okay, know what it is that helps you when you are feeling tired or troubled. Okay, give yourself time to rest, focus on your accomplishments, celebrate your little wins. Okay, do not be overcritical of yourselves, because there's only so much that we can do as human beings. Okay, there's nothing wrong in celebrating little achievements. Okay, practice prioritization and effective time management, including rest. Okay, so it is not a bad idea to rest. It is not going to be against you if you want to sleep for more than 8 hours. Okay? If you need it for your body and for your mind to recover, then you can do it. So journaling also helps. So it's one of some people really enjoy journaling. Okay? They really keep notebooks wherein they write their thoughts and feelings because it feels cathartic for them. Okay? Utilize available support systems for you, and of course, when you are feeling overwhelmed, you can deep breathe, because you always deserve it. Okay? Next, of course, a protective factor is the workplace psychological health and safety. Okay? If you are a nurse manager, or if you are in charge of a team of nurses, it is important to look into the workplace psychological health and safety. Is your team of healthcare workers in a good psychological state? Is the workplace safe enough to them to be yourself? Okay? Is your workplace a place for you to promote psychological well-being? Okay? Do you prevent harm to your employees' psychological health? So these are the things you need to consider. Because, of course, it is always a pleasure to work in a place or with a team of people whom you know who are healthy for your well-being. Okay, so that actually wraps up our very, very short but hopefully very meaningful interaction or meaningful presentation. Okay, what are the takeaways that I want everyone who is here with us tonight to know? Okay, stress and anxiety are responses to eventful situations which cannot be avoided. Okay, it's really going to happen anytime soon. It's going to happen one way or another. Okay, however, they differ in that anxiety is a reaction to stress. Okay, how you react to your stressors define your anxiety. Mild stress and anxiety may be managed by healthy coping techniques. Okay? If you have these feelings or you have this experience, you can manage it on your own as long as you know what kind of healthy coping techniques you have. Okay? But if it affects your daily living, as what I have previously stated, okay, if it affects your daily life, if you feel that it is worsening, then you have to be watched out with the help of co-workers and nurse managers. Okay? If you feel that it's going to be a hard time for you to cope up, then you can always seek help. And of course, workplace psychological health and safety is needed to promote the large-scale technique of managing stress and anxiety, at a larger scale. And with that, I would like to end my presentation, of course, by reminding everyone of the 7 pillars of self-care. So I'm not sure if a lot of people is aware of this, but we have 7 pillars of self-care that we need to have for us to have a healthy working relationship. So one, knowledge and health literacy, our mental health being, physical activity, nutrition or healthy eating, risk avoidance, good hygiene, and of course the rational use of products and services. So these are the things that can contribute to our self-care. Okay? Remember that self-care is not a luxury, but it is your need as human beings. Okay? With that, thank you very much. I give the floor again to Miss Lady May. Thank you very much.
Wow, I like that presentation. Thank you so much, Dominic. I like the quote, self-care is not a luxury, but a need. I really like that because, because I think it's really, really important. So thank you so much, Dominic, for the great presentation. And I know that it is really beneficial not only for us, not only for the healthcare providers, but also in other career. And then also we also know about the difference between the stress and anxiety. So thank you so much. And then for now, we will have here questions from our participants. And also this will also be beneficial, not only for those who ask, but also to our viewers. So the first question I have here is, excuse me, when is the right time to seek help from the professional?
Okay, so with that, I'm sorry, I think I'm having problems with my webcam. Okay, so let me just fix this. Okay, but to answer the question, I will just have to close my video for the time being. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. To answer the question, when is the right time to seek professional help? It is at the point when you have difficulty coping with it. If the stressor affects your daily living, if it's something that is so overwhelming that you cannot do the things that you normally do every day, that is the time when you need to seek help.
Oh, thank you for that. Another question is, what is the first thing to do or first aid if someone attacked by anxiety, like hardness of breathing? So what should they do first?
Oh, okay. So what are you going to do if you see someone who's allegedly having a panic attack or an anxiety attack?
Yeah, and right? Also if yourself too, for example, you experience that one. So what should I do?
Okay, that is a good question. Oh, anxiety has somatic symptoms or physical symptoms, as we call it in layman's term. So any physical symptoms about anxiety, you can address it by deep breathing. Okay? Anxiety presents itself as having difficulty of breathing or blackouts. So it is important that we provide oxygen to our bodies. Okay? We do deep breathing so that we can relax. So that is the first thing that you need to do if you feel that you are having an anxiety attack, or if you see someone who's having an anxiety attack, try to clear the area. Okay, bring the person to a quiet place with a lot of fresh air so that the person can breathe. Okay, and try to bring the person away from other people as much as possible so that they won't be too stimulated. Okay, so that is one thing that is really going to help until of course people who can help better can arrive.
Wow, thank you for that. At least we have an idea how to help other people, and also not only other people but ourselves as well. Yes. So thank you for that, Dominic. Okay. And then we have a question from Jason Rigos, what is your opinion on the implementation of alert level 4 in an area? Should it based on nurse-patient ratio or the number of COVID cases? Thank you. Asked by Don Jason.
Okay, so the decision for alert level 4. Okay. That is a tricky question. Huh? And well, you're asking my opinion, but for me, I think it's more on the nurse-patient ratio. Why? Okay, so why do I say that? It's because we are already in the point of the pandemic wherein COVID positive patients can actually do self-quarantine or home quarantine. So that is a huge weight off of the shoulders of healthcare institutions or hospitals. Okay? So basically, we have desaturated the need for hospital beds now that we know that home quarantine is possible. Okay? So if there is going to be a decision to put a place on alert level 4, I think that is going to base on the capacity of the hospitals to cater to COVID patients. So if the hospitals becomes too full with severe cases, so that is the time that, for me, that is the time for the decision to put a place on alert level 3. And then again, that is just my opinion.
Well, thank you for that opinion. So next question is it possible we all have anxiety once in our lives without knowing it? So is it possible?
Yes, I think that's possible. And on a personal note, sometimes I really have that feeling as well. So we're not really immune to it. And I think a lot of us really have this time wherein we're just sitting in a corner, but somehow we feel that, so I think something bad is going to happen, or I think something's not right. It happens at one point in our time. But of course, if it's just a fleeting feeling, then it's not really that big of a concern. Okay, and again, unless it affects your well-being.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, next question. What is your advice to the people who is suffering severe stress or mentally challenged, especially for today's pandemic? So what can you advise to them?
A very good advice for that is to actually invest on self-care strategies. Okay, so we are overwhelmed with a lot of stressors, but more often than not, simply choosing ourselves is a way for us to lessen our stress and anxiety. Because as human beings, we really have the capacity to care for other people. But of course, we cannot give the care that other people need if we ourselves are not even cared for in the first place. So if we want to rid ourselves of stress and anxiety, let us also choose ourselves, especially in these very trying times wherein there's a lot of demand. Okay, there is nothing wrong with prioritizing yourself. If you need to rest or do you need to focus on yourself, it's okay, especially nowadays. So choose yourselves before you choose others.
Yeah, and earlier you just mentioned about the self-care strategies, and I think that's really important thing to do. You have to know your self-care and then also your self-worth. But anyway, we have another question from Shay Moros. As a nursing student, I am also worried and uncertain about my future career, especially when we are unable to perform clinical duties and online classes do not appear unsuitable for us. What can you advise about us? Yeah, what can you advise? Can you please advise us? Thank you so much. What advice you can give to us?
Yeah. So there's a huge shift between practical application of the nursing skills nowadays because most of the classes are done online. And I really have to admit that a lot of my my skills has been honed during the clinical exposures in hospitals. But try not to be too hard on yourself. Try not to feel pressured. I'm not sure what year you are in already, but once you graduate and get your license and you end up working in the hospital, just try to be peaceful with the fact that you have so much yet to learn. Okay, so it is not going to help that you have these kinds of anxiety in you, but it's going to help you if you accept the limitations that you have. And us nurses, we really start out as novice nurses. We start out as people who do not know what we are doing. Okay, and it's okay. You can always ask for help. Do not be afraid to ask questions, or do not be afraid to admit that you are not yet familiar with any kinds of procedure, because it's always just better for you to ask rather than do something and then do it wrongly. Okay, so just accept yourself as a person who needs a lot to learn, and then you're going to adapt to it pretty much soon once you are in the clinical field. Okay, for now, just try to soak up all the knowledge and information. You will have your time to apply it.
Thank you for that, Miss Dominic. Now we still have another questions, and then from Mary Grace Ann Santos, how do we prevent discrimination against frontliners who are at risk on handling COVID patients po? Thanks.
I think that's a problem earlier on in when the pandemic started. But nowadays, I think we have already been accustomed to that. And as a healthcare worker myself, I think the discrimination has really lessened than before. But well, I think one of the things that lowers the discrimination is that when they see that we ourselves are compliant to health protocols. Okay? Because if people see that we know what to do in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19, then of course they will think that, oh, okay, so these people know what they're doing, and then there's really no need to discriminate them. And try not to think about these kinds of people, because again, quoting the Locus of Control, if it is beyond your control, then you do not have to worry or think about it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have also a question. What should someone with a pre-existing mental health condition do about do he need a regular mental health cleaning visits?
So are we talking about a person who is already diagnosed with a mental health condition? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Then how often he should visit?
How often?
Yeah.
Okay. A person who is diagnosed of a mental health condition has the illness for a lifetime already. So once you have been diagnosed, you need to maintain your medications, and you need to be always seen by a psychiatrist or someone who practices, of course, mental health consultations. Okay, so the frequency of clinic visits will depend on the psychiatrist. The medication needs to be taken with compliance, without fail, because mental illness is really just like any other disease, like hypertension or diabetes wherein when you stop or when you do not take your medications faithfully, then you're going to have a problem. Okay, so that's the same thing with mental illness. So if a person is diagnosed with mental illness, the medication is for life so that you can manage the symptoms, and the checkups or the hospital the clinic visits should be regular so that the psychiatrist can gauge your condition. The psychiatrist can adjust the medications according to the patient's condition. Okay? So it's really a dedication if you want to live with a mental health condition.
Thank you for that, Ms. Dominic. So we still have a question from our viewer, one of our viewers, Cheryl from Cheryl GML. How frequent can a health worker join and participate in a mental health webinar? Is it a prerequisite to attend in any mental health activity prior in seeking professional help? Thank you.
I'm sorry, my internet had problems while you were reading the question. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, sure. This question is from one of our viewers. So it's from Cheryl GML. How frequent can a healthcare worker join and participate in a mental health webinar? Is it a prerequisite to attend in any mental health activity prior in seeking professional help?
Oh, okay. There's really no prerequisite when it comes to attending mental health webinars. If you feel that you can if you feel that a professional can help you with your condition or with your mental health concerns, then you can go directly to them. But I would advise that before you go to a psychiatrist, maybe you can also gauge yourself. Am I having a crisis, or we have crisis hotlines wherein people can actually talk to a crisis counselor about their problems or anything that causes them distress. Okay, so the crisis responder can help the caller when it comes to their crisis. And if the responder detects that the caller needs psychiatric attention, then that is the time that the crisis responder can advise the caller to seek professional help. Okay, so that the crisis hotline is available in the National Center for Mental Health and also with other NGOs like the Natasha Goldborn Foundation. So far, the crisis hotline has been accepted really well in the community because there's been a lot of callers, and well, at least there has been a lesser number of people who go to psychiatrists immediately for something that can be resolved simply by crisis responders. Okay? And somehow it lessens the stigma because we now have become open to discuss our concerns when it comes to mental and emotional well-being because of this move. Okay, so yeah, I would advise that, of course, mental health webinars can help, but it would be better if you really have someone to talk to. Okay, so try considering calling in the crisis hotline before actually seeking professional help.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we still have a question from one of our viewers, from Rebecca. Is it not really into mental health, but I think everyone should know about it. If booster dose done, we frontliners exposed to COVID-19, is it possible to transmit the virus to our family member?
Well, let me clarify the question. If are you asking if by taking the booster shot, you risk passing the virus to your family members? Is that right?
Yeah, that's the question from Rebecca.
Okay. Um, Actually, that can only happen if by the time of the booster you have already contracted the virus. Okay, the booster does not cause COVID-19. Okay, it causes symptoms that are like COVID-19 because somehow you have been given a deactivated virus that is taken to COVID-19. But since it is deactivated, it means that it is not going to cause the symptoms of COVID-19 like you have been infected. Okay, so you're not going to cause COVID-19 to your family members simply by having the booster, unless you didn't even know that you have already contracted the virus. Okay, so you do not have to worry about boosters.
Yeah. Okay, and this is the last question. And to those who still have questions, we're so sorry because this will be the last. So the last question will be, can we avoid mental health problems or stress? Or is there any way how to avoid that situation?
Oh, I would love to live in a world wherein there's no stress or anxiety causing
Yeah, me
events.
too.
I would love to have that, but sadly we cannot have that kind of life because it's not easy being here. Yeah, but we cannot avoid them because I have stated before that stressors really happen in our everyday lives for us to be motivated to act. Okay, so we cannot avoid these stressors. However, we can do our part to adapt to these stressors so that we can go on living our lives as normal as possible. Okay? There is really no sense in avoiding them because life itself is really a stressful thing.
Yeah, that's true. To all our viewers, we can cater now for another question. So, yeah, Dominic, thank you. We really appreciate you. We really thank you for your time today. We have a lot of learnings from you, especially about our self-care, about the difference of stress and anxiety. And yeah, take note that self-care is not a luxury, but a need. I really like that quote. Thank you for that.
Wow.
Yeah, I really
Thank you. I love that too. And you, yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. So now I'll proceed to the giving of certificate. So I think we all done for the question and answer portion. So thank you so much to everyone who asked questions. And of course, thank you so much, Dominic, for sharing your knowledge regarding to the mental health awareness and also for the difference between stress and anxiety. And also as part of oners.com's appreciation for giving your time, this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dominic Marina Bitionco, RN, for sharing her valuable knowledge and expertise as a resource speaker in a webinar entitled Techniques for Reducing Anxiety and Stress for Frontliners in the Age of Pandemic, given this 29th day of January 2022, signed by Hirojit Singh Rajkumar, founder oners.com. Again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to all of our participants who have submitted their questions. All the best. Okay, so to all our viewers, we encourage you to finish your profile to the app so that you will be having a chance to win gifts from oners.com about our platform. So it's very easy. Just go to the browser or just go to the Play Store or iOS, Google Store, and then also to the Apple Store. Just search oners.com. So you still have the chance to complete your profile. And now let's start with, okay.
Thank you, Lady May. I think I can leave the meeting room now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Dominic, for your time.
Thank you, Lady May. Thank you, Mr. Rajkumar.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you to the team. Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving us your time today. And thank you for all our viewers. I hope that you have learned a lot from this webinar about mental health, about the anxiety, and also for the stress, and when or how to seek help for the professionals. We really appreciate your time. And thank you so much. Until next webinar, just follow or like the Facebook page of oners.com so that you will be notified if we will have an upcoming events like this, and also like a raffle draw. So I hope that you will like and follow our Facebook page. So to those who have not yet download the app, you still have it's already live, so you can do the you can download it now so that you will have good opportunities coming ahead from you. Thank you so much, everyone, and good night. Have a great day.